You can say a lot of things about Thomas Massie, some of them true, some of them false, but the one thing that is absolutely true, he stands on his own principles, and he is unwavering in those principles. He joins us now from the great state of Kentucky, Republican Representative Thomas Massie. Hello, Thomas.
How are you doing, Glenn?
I'm very good. I don't understand this whole Mike Johnson thing as Speaker of the House. I don't understand what happened to him, how we went so wrong. You know, people are saying that, this has been a scam forever. He's been, a rhino and just in hiding. And now getting rid of him at this point, what good is that going to do? Or even moving for this, because do you have the numbers to do it?
Great questions. Let me talk about how we got to where we are.
Okay.
So Mike Johnson has betrayed us 3 times.
Yes.
Big betrayals. He did an omnibus bill that spends more than Nancy Pelosi's omnibus bills did, and he gave the FBI a brand new building in that omnibus bill, and he didn't give us time to read it. He gave up on doing 12 separate bills. That was the first betrayal. Second betrayal, FISA. This is the spying program that's been used to surveil Americans without a warrant. He cast the deciding vote on whether to have warrants or not, and he voted against warrants. This is against what he stood for when he was on the Judiciary Committee that I serve on with Jim Jordan. So something has changed there. He said he spent time in a skiff that changed his mind. Guess what, Glenn? I don't know if your listeners know this. I spent 3.5 hours in the same skiff with him, getting briefed by CIA, NSA, DOD, FBI, and DNI, and a FISA judge. And in 3.5 hours, they didn't give us a specific example, not one, of how spying on Americans without a warrant has helped them stop terrorism. They gave hypotheticals, but no example. So that was the second betrayal, no warrants. Now you can still be spied on. It's reauthorized. Third betrayal just happened. This one we're still stinging from because you may have seen the videos that every Democrat in the House voted for money for Ukraine and then premeditated, passed out Ukrainian flags, and we're all waving them and basically humiliating us.
Yeah.
And I think Speaker Johnson, if he's capable of having shame at this point, should have been humiliated by that display as well. I put the video of that on Twitter, and the sergeant at arms told me it would fine me $500 if I didn't take it down. So I reposted it. Because, look, you're not supposed to put video of what's happening on the floor, but that was video of things that were breaking decorum, right? I was trying to provide evidence that they were in the wrong, and instead of prosecuting them, they came after me.
Of course.
Now, we got 8 million views on the video after I reposted it, and Speaker Johnson backed down on that fine because he knew how bad it looked. So third betrayal that was that, Ukrainian vote where we send the money overseas. We gave up all leverage on any border security. It included some other bad stuff in it. Lots of money going.
Let's talk about the $4 billion to help people from the Middle East immigrate here to the United States, including Palestinians. Are you nuts?
Yeah, and see, Mike Johnson's not going to stand up against that. By the way, those 3 bills that I just mentioned to you, you know what happened when they went to the Senate after they passed the House? Chuck Schumer didn't even change the punctuation of any of those bills. He didn't want any amendments to them. He wanted them exactly as Mike Johnson had delivered from the House because those were Chuck Schumer's bills that Mike Johnson put on the floor. So he is already in the arms of the uniparty. The question that you rightfully ask is, why do this? Well, people are always asking me, Thomas, can you show us, can you give us a list of the good guys and the bad guys? Can you tell me who the good guys are? Because I've got a primary, I got to vote in, I got a general election. Tell me the list. This list, you will have another list. We keep doing this at great peril to ourselves. The reason there's only a few of us who are willing to stand up and call this is because you put your reputation on the line, and people here hate transparency, and they hate us for doing it. But you'll have a list next week when the motion to vacate is called of who went with Hakeem Jeffries and the uniparty to keep Mike Johnson in power. Hakeem Jeffries, the reason he's supporting Mike Johnson, he got everything the Democrats want without any of the blowback by having Mike Johnson as Speaker And they have some plans for other things, like they may resettle Palestinian refugees in the United States and pay for it. They may want to make the funding for Ukraine permanent. And before our next election, there's going to be another CR or omnibus or something. That deadline's September 30th. So there's some people are like, well, why would you do this now, Congressman Massie? Hasn't Mike already done all the bad stuff to us? Can't we just sit it out through the next election? No, because what Hakeem Jeffries wants more than anything is to be the speaker. And the only way he becomes the speaker is by getting the majority of the House in November. And he knows Mike Johnson is the most uninspiring speaker we've ever had, who will not do anything to inspire a base. And we're most likely to lose the majority under Speaker Johnson.
So what would the plan be if you could get this to pass? I mean, well, first of all, let me ask you, how many other Freedom Caucus members are standing with you?
Well, I think before Hakeem Jeffries came out for Speaker Johnson, there were probably somewhere between 12 and 20 who didn't want to speak up but would have voted with us. Now I think you may have maybe the entire Freedom Caucus. We'll see. I know people outside of the Freedom Caucus who said, if one Democrat votes to keep Mike Johnson, I ain't voting to keep him, because they know what that means. That means it's the uniparty. Now, the first vote will be on a motion to table to try and prevent this from even coming up for an actual vote. But people should understand that motion to table, if they succeed, that is the only vote that will happen. And then that is your list there. Those are the people who saved Mike Johnson, which Hakeem Jeffries and all the Democratic leadership say they'll do it, and some of the Democrat rank and file. And there are some Republicans who said they'll vote to table. But that will be the vote. Now, if we could succeed, if we can get past that motion to table, and maybe Hakeem Jeffries has only 40 Democrats who are willing to walk the plank, because I can imagine that's going to be tough for them in their primaries unless they're planning on retiring. Can you imagine you saved the Christian speaker who is against abortion and all this other stuff and wants to – anyways. So I'm not sure how many votes Hakeem has, but I think he helped us grow our numbers. Let's say we make it past that first vote, and there is a motion to vacate, and Mike Johnson is vacated. At that point, who would we elect? Well, we would like for Mike Johnson to avoid the scenario I just described. We're giving him a weekend to resign. If he would announce that he's leaving, like John Boehner did, in 10 weeks, and he won't be offended as we have votes to replace him while he's still the speaker, we could go without ever not having a speaker. We could keep doing subpoenas in the Judiciary Committee. We can hold hearings, and we can pass all these wonderful little messaging bills that they love to pass. But if that doesn't happen, we have to elect a speaker. We'll be on the spot. I think there are a dozen people in the GOP conference who have something in their prior life, whether it was political experience or private experience, that qualifies them for the job. Mike Johnson is a lost ball in tall weeds. I don't think there's some conspiracy where they've got his kids locked up in the basement, or something like that. Or I don't think they've got info on him or blackmail material. I just don't think he can do the job, and there's nothing in his life prepared him for it. Let's find somebody who can, and hopefully that'll inspire people to keep us in the majority, because even if Hakeem Jeffries bails Mike Johnson out next week, they're not going to bail him out in January. We know he is a lame duck speaker. Look, he knows it. Let's get him out of there before he causes any more mischief.
What did McCarthy do better than Johnson?
Oh, that's a great question. Under McCarthy, we did 7 of the 12 bills. Okay, there's 12 separate bills. He said, well, we won't do an omnibus. We'll do 7 of the 12. We got 7 of the 12 done. We had 1,000 amendments. I'm on the Rules Committee. We got votes on 1,000 amendments to allow rank-and-file members to participate in the legislative process. When Mike Johnson came on board, he did 2 or 3 CRs. He ignored the 7 bills that we had done. He made no effort to do the other 5, and he said you're going to get a 2-part omnibus. That was the bad thing. The second thing, well, Kevin McCarthy could have cut a deal with the Democrats and could have been Speaker still now. He said, I'm not going to do it. That the position is not that important to me, that we will make a uniparty here and share power. So that's another thing that Mike Johnson has expressed a willingness to do that Kevin wouldn't do. And then finally, as a part of the debt limit deal this last summer, Kevin extracted from Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer, this is signed into law, it's still law, that if you do a CR and it goes past April 30th, basically halfway through the fiscal year, there's a 1% cut to everything. And Kevin secured that from Joe Biden. Mike Johnson had three choices on the spending bills when he came into office. He could have either used the 1% cut option, he could have worked on the 5 other bills, or he could have done an omnibus. He did the omnibus. He actually should have done the 1% cut option that Kevin had secured at great, and spent a lot of political capital on getting that provision in law. So those are three things that Kevin did that Mike didn't. And Kevin, he put 3 of us on the Rules Committee that gave us a blocking position, Chip Roy, Ralph Norman, and myself. And we used that for good. We forced the 72-hour rule for the entire time Kevin was Speaker. That's another thing Mike Johnson threw out the window. You don't always get 3 days to read a bill now. He's overriding his own Rules Committee, and he's going with Democrats to do it.
Do you think this was, I read someplace that, this was planned from the beginning. He's been lying in wait, trying to pretend that he was part of the Freedom Caucus for years. Do you believe that?
Yeah. What really confused me is the readiness with which sort of the big spenders in Washington, D.C. accepted Mike Johnson as a valid Speaker candidate after defeating Jim Jordan multiple times. They found Jim Jordan unsuitable, but they found this junior member very suitable to the job who had no experience, had never been a chairman, didn't have much staff. And I think at that point they got some assurance from Mike Johnson that or some feeling that Mike Johnson would be a good guy to carry the water for the establishment here in D.C., and that's exactly what he's done.
Well, Thomas, when do you file? This is Monday?
Probably what will happen is we'll file Monday. Speaker Johnson, because it's a privileged resolution, the only thing that has higher privilege is motion to adjourn. So he will have 2 legislative days to bring it up. So if we file it on Monday, the vote will either be Monday immediately or Tuesday or Wednesday. And if we file it on Tuesday, it would be either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday would be the vote.
You don't believe that he's going to back away, though? I mean, you put this, or Marjorie Taylor Greene did, she put this in line to be brought up as kind of a threat. Hey, we're thinking about doing this. Don't push us. And he did it anyway.
That's right. So he called the bluff, and we're calling the bluff, and we're going to have this vote. What I hope, Glenn, is that our conference chair, our whip, and our majority floor leader would go to Mike Johnson. We exhibit the leadership that we put them on that team to exhibit and say, Mike, it's over. It's just not worth what you're doing. You're going and partnering with Hakeem Jeffries and the minority whip and the minority conference chair. We can't do that. So I'd like to see them go convince Mike Johnson as a team it's time for him to step aside. He could still do that. And I know, as improbable as it sounds and as resolved as Mike Johnson seems when he goes to the podium, that's exactly how John Boehner was until the 5 minutes he took to resign.
Thomas, I know we only got about a minute left, but
yeah.
if the concern is that, Johnson will work with Jeffries when he's, put up against a wall and do these things,
mm-hmm.
If you go forward with this, you're making Johnson's political life dependent on Hakeem Jeffries saving him. I mean, couldn't this potentially just make all of this worse?
It's very painful to expose this. I think what we are illuminating, I don't think we're causing him to go in that direction. We're illuminating what actually exists in Washington, D.C., and why you don't get the results you want. It's because he's already in league with Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, and Hakeem Jeffries. And we're just illuminating what would be otherwise, I believe.
Thomas, God bless you. Thank you for standing up for your principles, whether people agree or disagree with you and your stance. I will tell you that I have a lot of respect for somebody who will take the heat because they won't sit down on their principles. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Glenn. And people say this is a lost cause, you shouldn't do it. People didn't elect us to give up. People elected us to try, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.